Mark Prova.
And I'm Katrina Morrison.
And we want to go a bit deeper with God.
We are the ministers of Auchtertool Kirk and Linktown Church in Kirkcaldy, both of these in Fife in Scotland. And in this coronavirus lockdown, we've been leading online worship.
But while that has been great, we are aware that in some things we are just scratching the surface. And so the idea for this series was born.
It's a chance to go a bit deeper with God. If you have questions or other topics that you'd like us to address, please do get in touch. Our contact details are at the end. What's important in faith? That's what I want to look at today. What are the things that get to the essence of it all? The things that are most distinctive? I suppose by any measure that is subjective. Someone else could pick out a different set. Maybe. Or maybe not. Way back when I was a student, I faced an exam question which has stayed with me. You know what it's like? You prepare as best you can for an exam, and then the day comes and you turn over the paper and it can say anything at all. This particular exam was in Christian ethics. And the first question was, what, if anything, is distinctively Christian about Christian ethics? And you think that should be easy, but it's not. A lot of the ethics in the Bible are first laid out in the Old Testament, which is the Jewish Bible that the Christians simply took over and incorporated. And even where it was Jesus that highlighted things, he was still taking Jewish teaching and knowledge of God and interpreting it. He wasn't out to found a new religion. Now that's good, of course. A lot of the values that we have in religion are shared ones, particularly with Jews and Muslims, because these religions come out of the same Jewish roots, but with others as well, and with humanists, because a lot of the values that we have aren't necessarily about God, but about how we live with each other. Are there things that go beyond ethics or morality, which are basic, essential to faith? Yes, I think so. And it's some of these that I want to look at today. Love. Love is basic to Christianity. We say God is love. Jesus told his followers to love one another, and that's how they'd be recognisable to the world. So, love is essential. As is forgiveness. That was the answer that I came up with in the exam about what was distinctively Christian. Forgiveness. So I want to look at that one too. Then there's grace, which is a wonderfully counter-cultural thing and gives us a whole new way of living in God. Grace also brings us to the heart of Christianity. And justice, for without that, we're making a mockery of the gift of life. And hope. Hope is the other thing that I would add in, which is an integral part of life and faith. Now, we can't cover all of these: love, forgiveness, grace, justice, and hope in one edition of this. But we can make a start. And there will be possibly more that come to add in as well. So starting with love. There are 706 separate mentions of the word love in the Bible, which is quite a lot. Starting in the very first book, Genesis, and going right through to the last one, Revelation. There's a very famous passage which Paul wrote in one of the letters to God's people at Corinth, and I'll read that soon. But there are two other mentions that I want to highlight in particular. One comes near the end of the Bible, in the first of John's letters. John talks a lot about love, and he's the one who says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, because love comes from God. Whoever loves is a child of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love. And then a little later, he also says, God is love. And those who live in love live in union with God, and God lives in union with them. He also says that perfect love drives out all fear. When we're loved, we don't need to be afraid. God is love, and we don't need to be afraid. And John was picking up on what Jesus said when he told his friends also to love one another just as he had loved them. In fact, that would be the mark of his followers, how they would be recognizable to the world, that they loved one another. And that's from John's Gospel that we have that recorded for us. So what is love? Listen to the passage from 1 Corinthians, Paul's letter to the church at Corinth in Greece. He starts by saying, you might be able to do all kinds of fancy and amazing things and be the most spiritual and believing person in the world. But if you don't have love, don't show love, then it's all worse than useless. And then he says, love is patient and kind. It's not jealous or conceited or proud. Love is not ill-mannered or selfish or irritable. Love does not keep a record of wrongs. Love is not happy with evil, but is happy with the truth. Love never gives up, and its faith, hope, and patience never fail. Love is eternal. There are three things that last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Love is at the heart of faith, the one thing above all else that we can't do without. We said earlier that God is love. And when Jesus was asked what was the most important commandment, his answer, quoting the Old Testament and his Jewish faith, was all about love. It was in two parts. He said, love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your strength. And also, love your neighbour as you love yourself. Love God, love one another. And Jesus, in his teachings, made it very clear that we weren't just to love our friends and those like us, those who are easy to love. In fact, he said, what's so very special about that? No, loving was about loving enemies and loving those who are a challenge to love as well. And God loves us, each of us. Love is simply at the heart of everything. And if you don't get any further in going deeper than love, well, really, you've got it all. And everything else are just details that flow from it. But actually, does that seem like a tall order? Love your neighbour? Jesus, have you seen my neighbour? I'm struggling to love my friends, let alone my enemies. And as for my family, if trying to love everyone makes you feel inadequate, then stay with me, because there's grace. And I want to squeeze grace into this edition of Going Deeper too, though the other things, forgiveness, justice, hope, will have to wait. Grace. Grace is just wonderful. You've probably all sung Amazing Grace, and whether you love it or hate it, are you really very sure what grace is? Or maybe you catch a glimpse in that song, but it's not always that clear. The word grace gets used in funny ways in English, from your grace, for a duke or duchess, to doing something with bad or good grace, to a ballet dancer having tremendous grace, to saying grace before food. And there are a whole load of other more meanings of the word as well, none of them particularly helpful for this. Grace in the Christian sense is turning the world's values upside down and learning to see things from God's perspective. And the great way of grasping that is looking at what's often called the cycle of grace. Most often, the way of the world is about trying to achieve. From the moment a baby's born, we're looking for milestones in its life, and we delight in seeing children grow and develop and go places. We're keen to talk of children's successes, for as they achieve, then they gain significance in the eyes of the world, and that sustains them. And it's through all that they achieve that they're accepted. That is the usual pattern we follow. But it's not God's pattern. God is love, as we've been saying. And if we start from that point, then everything is different. God is love, and God loves us, just because we are. Think again of the newborn baby. In normal circumstances, the baby is greatly loved long before it's achieved any milestones or can do anything. It's weeks before it even smiles in response to you, and it learns to smile at all in response to your love outpoured to this demanding wee baby. God loves us just because we are God's, and God created us out of love. And it's that love and acceptance by God that sustains us and gives us strength. We have significance not because of anything we've done, but because we are God's and we are loved. That's what enables us to achieve. But that comes at the end of the cycle, not the beginning. And if we never achieve anything at all, we're loved just as much as others who might. Or maybe it's the achievement that's different. It's the cycle of grace that makes us love and cherish and honour the child with profound disabilities who will never achieve anything in the world's terms. And it's grace that says that people who are weak and vulnerable at any point in life, including the end of life, are still valuable to be treated with care and dignity. Grace is where humanity meets the divine. And we learn to value and treasure each other, not because of what we have, or who we represent, or our nationality, or background, or achievements. None of these. Grace is what enables us to love as God loves, just because we are. Because we're God's, and because God loves us. We love because God first loved us. And being loved enables us to love in return. Christian basics? That's absolutely it. Know how much God loves you, and then you can love too.